Right now, it is ugly times ugly. And that's when the ugly get going.
WallStreetBets. The little guy is finally sticking it to the man. If you haven't seen what's going on with WallStreetBets and GameStop, or if you don't really fully understand what happened or the ramifications of it, stick around. I'm going to get into what it was, how it happened, and why it's so freaking awesome today on the Unconventional Entrepreneur Show. Welcome to the Unconventional Entrepreneur Show. I'm your host, Glenn Kowalski. Every week on this channel, you'll find new videos to help liberty-minded entrepreneurs and investors like you find more personal, financial, and location independence. So be sure to hit the subscribe and the notification buttons now so you never miss your chance to find more freedom in this unfree world. The GameStop, Reddit, WallStreetBets saga that's filling up the news cycle right now might not be the biggest financial scandal of our time, but it has been a real thing of beauty because all of a sudden it's made a lot of us mere mortals start to understand the manipulation that's actually going on in the market, and it's showing us that by working together, we can actually move mountains. And better yet, that we, as little guys, can fight back. But for some reason, the media doesn't want any of us talking about or understanding all of this. I wonder why that is. But to understand what really happened with GameStop and with this Reddit group, you have to have a little bit of knowledge of the financial markets and especially understand what short selling is. Most people have heard of short selling, but I find that a lot of people don't really understand what it is. But it's really quite simple. Short sales are simply a way for a company to profit on a stock even when that stock price is going down. Because clearly, why would anybody want people to profit just when a company is being successful? This is how it works. Let's say that Fat Cat Daddy hedge fund believes that ABC stock is going to go down in value. Today that stock is selling for $100 just to make the math easy. Fatty doesn't actually own any ABC stock, so what he does is he goes to Tim Broker and he borrows one of his. Fatty agrees with Tim that he'll give him back that stock in, say, 30 days or at some point in the future, along with a commission and a little bit of interest for borrowing it. Well, now that Fatty has that hot little stock in his hands, he goes out to Joe Market and he sells it at today's price of $100. Now, here's what's supposed to happen. Fast forward about 30 days, and now Fat Cat has to make good on his promise to Tim, go buy back a share and give it back to him. Well, if Fatty was right, he goes out to the market and the price has dropped, and now that stock cost him $60 to go buy it back. So he goes out to Joe Market and he buys back that stock for $60, and he goes and he hands that back to Tim. Fat Cat Daddy hedge fund has now profited $40 because he paid $60 to buy a stock that he had already sold earlier in the month for $100. The problem happens when it doesn't quite work out that way and the value of the stock goes up. Now, poor old Fat Cat Daddy hedge fund needs to go back and buy the stock 30 days later, but he has to pay more for it. And in this case, he takes a loss, and sometimes that loss can be huge. So here's the rub, and it's the really cool part of this whole story. There's this group of small investors out on the social media platform called Reddit. They have a subgroup on this social media platform called WallStreetBets. Now, because these investors are usually small investors like you and I, they tend to really hate the hedge funds. And they realize that a lot of the big hedge funds, like Melvin Capital, for example, were shorting GameStop stocks like crazy. So they decided what they would do is they would get together and they would start buying up these GameStop stocks so that they could drive up the price. Now, keep in mind there might have been a small incentive, financial incentive to these transactions, but really they were just as likely to lose money, and the primary incentive was really to stick it to Melvin Capital. And personally, I think that's an awesome motivation to do anything. Anyway, GameStop shares rose from about $17.25 at the start of the month to around $347, depending on the dates that you're looking at. This one move cost the hedge funds about $20 billion. Yes, that's $20 billion with a B in losses to the hedge fund companies. Now, unfortunately, the plan was foiled a little bit. And this is where the scandal, in my opinion, really starts. Yes, in our ideal world and in our stories in our head, Robin is supposed to steal from the rich and give it to the poor. Unfortunately, in the real world that we live in, or at least in this case, Robinhood is screwing over the poor in order to make the rich even richer. Robinhood is this low-price trading app that's been favored by the small investors, especially the young investors who would hang out in a social media like Reddit. Well, Robinhood stepped in and they screwed up the process by stopping the buying of GameStop shares on their platform. So people going on there, they were allowed to sell their shares, which would help to drive the price back downward again, but they couldn't buy to continue driving up the price and go with the plan. Why did Robinhood do that? Well, because their big brother, Citadel, told them to. Now, for context, Citadel recently paid Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen $810,000 to speak at one of their conferences. So in other words, they're very tied to the rich, elite bankers and the corrupt financial system in general. And it wasn't just Robinhood and Citadel in on this scam, in my opinion. But it's another attack by big tech. The WallStreetBets subreddit is hosted on a service called Discourse. Discourse shut down the Reddit account for the entire weekend just so that members of the community couldn't talk back and forth and coordinate this. And sure, they went and blamed it on hate speech. But isn't it just a little bit suspicious that this happened all on the exact same weekend as this entire buy-up event was going down? So anyway, why do I think that all of this is so awesome? Well, hedge funds are managed by those super rich one percenters who use other people's money to make themselves richer. In fact, that's one of the few things that us libertarians and a lot of progressives on the left actually agree on. These guys have been manipulating the markets forever because
they can.
The big hedge funds have these great big fat wallets and they have the financial power to drive down the value of a company's stock anytime they want to. Because all they have to do is start selling these massive amounts of shares to cause its price to drop. Plus, they have access to the media, who, shockingly enough, are all in the same club. So anyway, their buddies in the media can badmouth a company, which can help to drive down its stock price even further. So their buddies in the media can badmouth a company and persuade other people to go out there and dump the stock, driving down even faster. So anyway, I think it's absolutely hysterical that these big hedge funds, they've always wanted less and less regulations when it was them busy out there screwing with the market and screwing up other people's investments. But now that they're the victim, all of a sudden they want Big Daddy Brother to step in and put more regulations on the market again. Better yet entirely, and even more hysterical, is it made all of the hedge fund billionaires cry like a bunch of little bitches. In reality, Hedge Fund Bets is now one of the biggest hedge fund companies in the world, but they're completely decentralized. I believe that the path to total freedom is paved with voluntary, decentralized transactions. One last thing I want to mention, I'd be doing a bit of a disservice if I didn't tell you. There's a rumor right now that WallStreetBets is going after the silver market next. And according to a buddy of mine who sells physical silver, he says he's going crazy, running around like a chicken with his head cut off, trying to track down silver. And that a lot of the silver websites have completely shut down because they're trying to sell silver that no longer exists in the market. But aside from that, overall, the most exciting thing about all of this situation is that people are finally starting to wake up to how the 1% are really screwing over the rest of us. And it's finally our turn to start fighting back. So if you're one of those people who are awake and you want to fight back against the system and build something for yourself, go see the other video that's on your screen right now. This is Glenn from the Unconventional Entrepreneur Show, and I'm going to see you over there.